And hello and welcome to History Flights, your monthly tour through contemporary and historical politics through video games. This is going to be a bit of a looser script than usual for me because I am seriously tired and still adjusting to the end of daylight savings time. My autism demands that the human species pick one and stick with it, everybody. But tonight, all I have to do is celebrate the Democrats' clean sweep by power washing locations in Power Wash Simulator 2, the way that they just did for America. It's not a blue wave yet, as we have a long way to go to cement the gains that we got tonight or last night, and keep that momentum going, and get back a Congress who will rein in this rogue treasonous excuse for a president. But I can see the crest, and its spray has been refreshing to my spirit. I had seen signs in plenty of special elections for the past few months that Democrats had the momentum, and definitely thought Mamdani would win in the bluest city in the country apart from Washington, D.C., in my opinion, despite Cuomo being able to consolidate some Republicans, centrist Democrats, and independents behind him. But this many blowout wins in a single amazing day is a shot in our arm for our ailing democracy. I also listened to part of the Supreme Court's oral argument in Learning Resources versus Trump, also called VOS Selections v. Trump because both cases were consolidated, and we'll analyze that in more detail as part of the Delta Papers number 3, America's Dangerous President Worship, in December, where I investigate the powers of the president in relation to other branches of government as well as past presidencies and African dictators to conclude the series on how dictators rise and fall in the Bioshock games. So please subscribe, like, hit the bell, share, comment, and send me some of that new hype if you like to support that. And stay tuned for your bi-weekly voyage for BS3 gaming news, Sunny Redemption Sailing number 41, Halo's spooky arrival on PS5. Tentatively set for tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. EDT, Standard Time. Now that daylight is much less, holy crap, and my stomach's like, you have to eat dinner at like 5. Ah! Anyway, this is depending on my co-host Kevin's schedule. Then there's History Flights Tours, where I filmed the East Wing and the National Mall and talk about its history on November 11th. Lastly, I have The Hidden Faith, a truly independent investigation of the Baha'i Faith, where I expose that small, secretive, mendacious cult's ties to Israel and the larger context of the Israel-Gaza war and the constantly disputed ceasefire for it, live at 9:30 p.m. again on Sunday, November 16th. But first, because that was the race I was following the most closely due to being a suburbanite from New York, and having visited the greatest city in the world many times, and my sister living there in Brooklyn with her husband. It's kind of insane how many ads Cuomo and Sliwa put out during the final games of the World Series, which, by the way, was my favorite baseball game since 2000, when I cheered on Derek Jeter against the White Sox with my Little League trophies, even though the Blue Jays did not win after 32 years. Oh, man. Imagine waiting my entire lifetime to potentially get a baseball win only to be defeated, and humiliate Trump like I hoped. Though he was such a mean girl about it and decided not to invite neither winning team to the White House. Anyway, I also watched Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein while dressed as Indiana Jones. I wanted to wear the hat on this stream, but, well, no, it looks ridiculous, but who cares? I am just enjoying myself tonight, and you're going to get a tilted Indiana Jones hat on top of headphones, because why not? Anyway, I had watched that movie as well as Ready or Not, which I liked right after that, and then Love Hurts, and then Dracula Dead and Loving It. Well, yet the billionaires spent an even spookier amount on the race. $113 million for Michael Bloomberg, for instance. Anyway, Mamdani didn't need any of that because he gained an online and grassroots audience, an impressive canvassing network I saw anytime I visited my sister and her husband, and a double-digit lead. The final margin of victory ended up being 9 points over Cuomo. I mean, combined, it was like 50% total of the vote going to But that was 1 million votes. The turnout was the highest New York City has seen in 30 years. Anyway, he did this entirely through an Obama-like charisma and promises to fix the cost of living crisis, along with votes for various ballot measures to restrict the power of the city council to hold up construction projects. I also condemn the picture of the Twin Towers that was used to say, think about this before you vote for Mamdani, which is not even an Islamophobic dog whistle, but a goddamn foghorn. The way you can tell is that this isn't even tangentially related to any legitimate criticisms of Islam, the religion, or its unconscionable combinations with the might of the state in large parts of the world, but saying that Muslims should be presumed to be terrorists in waiting, a fifth column incapable of leading the largest city in the world. My pregnant cousin fucking died in the South Tower when I was 9, thank you very fucking much, fascist assholes, to exploit my trauma, that of thousands of other family members who haven't been able to get justice because of Saudi Arabia's status as our ally, and our nation's trauma that led to the civil rights ending or eroding, war on terror, killing hundreds of thousands of Afghans and Iraqis for American imperial adventurism is wrong. Period. But Mamdani didn't focus on any of that and just communicated a simple and strong message well. No wonder Obama, while not endorsing him, offered to be a sounding board for him. He recognizes what dinosaurs who belong in a museum, like Schumer, don't. That Mamdani and other young progressives, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Kat Abugazaleh? I'm so sorry if I butchered that. I'm just going to call her Kat Abu in future streams. And Jasmine Crockett, who aren't afraid to tell it like it is, the way that Trump used to be perceived, and have actual solutions for the affordability crisis, are the future of the Democratic Party. It's the economy, stupid. And namely, it's pretty much taxing the rich, so the middle class, of the kind that allowed my mom and dad to buy a house in their late 20s, and then have my sister and me can come back. Meanwhile, I'm hoping I might, eventually, be able to afford a house with their help for myself and my fiancé and son once this MAGA nonsense is over in 5 years. By the time they come from Eswatini, little man will be 15 and not so little. Which means we probably won't be able to have another kid if that's what we want. Of course, our son means the world to me, and I will love and adopt him the instant I can and love him with all my heart, whether he's my one and only or equally if we give him a sibling. But it infuriates me that I don't have the option. I'm also anxious because my paycheck from Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, even though I'm thankful we have funding during the shutdown, basically we get it used to be $600 million, and now it's $300 million, $300 million Christmas card from the Federal Reserve, is being delayed by furloughs at Bureau of the Fiscal Service, and our snaky director refusing to ask for more funds from the Federal Reserve for next year. So funds are running low, meaning that I'm scrambling to find other jobs in an economy where those don't exist in case I get furloughed. Even retail. Potentially at like an Apple store, because I know a lot about Apple products and technology. Anyway, Mikey Sherrill ran on lowering electricity prices in New Jersey. Honestly, the solution for that is to make server farms that run planet-killing AI pay the difference between what the grid would normally be and the elevated prices. While Chiatarelli tiptoed around Trump even as Trump endorsed him and Cuomo, which was the kiss of death for both of their campaigns. And after the election, Trump was surprisingly right about something for once. That the shutdown was partially to blame, as well as the fact that his name wasn't on the ballot, which didn't lure the dwindling herd of MAGA sheep who are stuck so far up Trump's orange ass that they haven't even woken up after their health insurance premiums and grocery bills skyrocketed amidst his policies of casual cruelties to his opponents. The shutdown, meanwhile, was a huge exacerbation of the anti-establishment energy that's been building since Biden's failed run, especially with the gobsmacking callousness of President Pedophile reducing and delaying SNAP benefits while going back and forth on obeying court orders or not. The White House appears to be defying him here because they don't have immunity and see that denying people food is a political loser. So at least there's that. But of course, then the concern becomes that the president is sundowning again and throwing a huge Great Gatsby party, as well as Mike Johnson using the shutdown as an excuse to force the House to not work indefinitely while still collecting health benefits, I might add, and deny the people of Arizona's 7th District representation for 41 motherfucking days to prevent the release of the Epstein files. Just how tone deaf can the guardians of old pedophiles get? It's staggering. Anyway, despite him claiming then that the election was rigged again, when it's clearly just the results he doesn't like that are called that, and so people don't buy that. And then blaming mail-in voting and telling people on Monday about all sorts of things. People at large don't care about his fake criticisms of vote by mail. He said, Virginia and New Jersey price... Or wait, no, I got to do my my Trump impression. Virginia and New Jersey, remember this. A vote for a Republican means substantially lower energy prices. A vote for a Democrat, especially these two losers who are running, meaning Spanberger and Cheryl, who both won by overwhelming margins, means a doubling, tripling, and even quadrupling of your energy costs. It will not be sustainable, and you will rue the day that you voted to destroy your life. Failing to vote tomorrow is the same as voting for a Democrat. I mean, a little bit late for election messaging, you lazy asshole. But anyway, many Republicans, including some who had been the most avid opponents of absentee voting, have said they recognize that the practice is necessary to win elections, yet they cannot go against their orange cult leader. So they just keep tripping over their own feet, trying to expand mail-in voting while people are being told not to, especially the aging base. Anyway, he could have tried to cancel this one, and they didn't. So don't fucking tell me there won't be midterms. The Senate is bucking him on the filibuster. The White House is even contradicting him on SNAP payments. He is weak and flailing, and any attempts to cancel elections will be the end of him. As there's no way this dumbass can command the kind of force necessary for a total military dictatorship, as I explained in the Delta Papers #1, and so I roar against tyranny. And besides, the point of it is to prove how dangerous he is. So if the American people somehow... Oh, this is about my potential joke president run. I'm thinking of running as a novelty candidate in D.C. in 2028, and taking it nationwide if he tries to run for a third term. More on that later. And I'm gonna just take off the hat. Anyway, but yeah, I'm very aware that an attempt to secure alternative means of power would likely endanger my life and many thousands of other people. I'm also reminded of a little quoted part of Patrick Henry's famous "Give me liberty or give me death" speech. Mr. President, it is natural for men to indulge in the illusions of hope. We are apt to shut our eyes against a painful truth, and listen to the song of that siren until she transforms us into beasts. Is this the part of wise men engaged in a great and arduous struggle for liberty? Are we disposed to be of the number of those who, having eyes, see not, and having ears, hear not, the things which so nearly concern their temporal salvation? For my part, whatever anguish of spirit it may cost, I am willing to know the whole truth, to know the worst, and to provide for it. I have but one lamp by which my feet are guided, and that is the lamp of experience. I know no way of judging the future but by the past. And yet the past, although painful prologue sometimes, is giving me hope. And again, this election is giving me hope. I also have alternative speeches of my own in case these don't work. That's all I'll say about that. But last night's electoral clean sweep was a real boost for my mood. Speaking of winning, these are my hot takes from listening to the Solicitor General's portion of the oral argument in the tariff case Learning Resources v. Trump. The Learning Resources is a toy maker and his daughter in Florida, I believe. Though I'll need to double check that in my script later. A very thoroughly linked script will be available tomorrow when this is fully published in the description. Oh man, I fell off. Grr. Okay, well, there's that. And then there's soon to be this ladder. I do like the raised lift, but it can be a little fiddly sometimes, so I'm gonna try just good old-fashioned ladders for a second. Oh, right, I forgot that I'm on classic controls for Power Wash Simulator 2. Which I think the new controls, if I had used them from the beginning, would have been great, but, well, anyway. I'm just stuck on the old controls because that's what I'm used to after playing the first game for 11 days in total. It's very much a podcast game, and that's going to be what I'll use this for as well. Especially now that the water volume is turned off. In any case, So, this is about the argument for this from the Solicitor General. It was terrible, and the International Emergency Economic Powers Act tariffs that Trump claimed gave him unlimited authority to tax the entire world and make Americans pay for it at the supermarket checkout, while absolutely killing the value of the dollar, are likely to get struck down next year. In the first major check by the Supreme Court on Trump's power, if only to selfishly protect their own legitimacy. I really hope this happens because while there are other tariff authorities our lawless wannabe king will abuse in his quest for personal enrichment and revenge, all this IEPA nonsense makes remittances like the one I have to send to Africa for all of my family's needs much more expensive as my rent increases, pinching me severely from both sides. I'm still reading and forming impressions of the rest of it, as I mentioned, for the Delta Papers number 3 in December. Again, please like and subscribe. Doing this for free is not easy. And I'm going to try and flesh out the cat's dictator life cycle I mentioned in those streams into a non-fiction book proposal called Why All Dictators Are Cats, so I can get a 2-year advance, as well as writing a steampunk fantasy novel called The Wind Empress in Their Majesty's Service. Anyway, I wanted to see the strength of the government's argument and how keen the conservative majority might be to twist constitutional principles for their pet Republican president, but I think that failed, if that was their intention. Sauer didn't help himself because he was really stretching the term regulation to mean basically whatever the president, regulation of foreign commerce, to mean basically whatever the president wants. And Sotomayor went for the kill, IMO, by saying that IEPA mentions regulation of imports and exports, but Congress is prohibited from levying an export tax by the Constitution, so why would that mean regulating with tariffs on imports either? I liked when someone remarked, "They're friends?" after Sotomayor grilled the Solicitor General, which got a laugh. It also seems like Alito is hung up on the major questions doctrine, which is that, like, if there's a major political thing that's happening, the Supreme Court should kind of side with the... let me just look this up for a second. My brain is mush. Major questions doctrine. Okay. It requires clear congressional authorization for agencies to regulate matters of economic or political importance. Okay, that makes sense. This way, the political process is preserved and agencies don't go rogue. I feel like this was slightly abused to really just slam down anything that Biden did, almost. And they brought up a lot his use of student loans. It's like, why couldn't the Biden administration have just declared a fake emergency about student loans, or actually declared an emergency on climate change, which maybe he should have, to regulate imports this way and just slap down tariffs. Anyway, Alito was also thinking. Again, I think this is my first oral argument I've ever listened to. And Coney Barrett was all about the historical context of IEPA attempting to limit presidential authority after President Nixon abused the Trading with the Enemies Act to do exactly what this is just impose a tax, which a tariff is, on the entire world. And the Solicitor General just was flailing, trying to explain why regulatory tariffs are different than revenue-raising tariffs. They do the same thing. Anyway, she also said it's nice to imagine words mean certain things that you want to, paraphrasing here, and exact quote, some of us care about the legislative history, which is like, bam. This is not going to be a partisan vote. I think it's going to be 5-4 in favor of overturning. Maybe even 6-3 in favor of overturning. Who knows? Because, yeah. Kavanaugh, I'm sorry if I got that wrong, was wondering if Congress can just delegate away all power to regulate foreign commerce or declare a war if regulation is so broad. Which really gets broadly into the foreign policy blanket the administration wants to seize power under by just saying, foreign policy, the unreviewable, la 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 la. Then I ran this interpretation by the good folks at r/Supreme Court on Reddit, who seemed to like it, and asked if someone could please explain the intelligible principle test, which I was confused on. One person replied, no, that's the problem. It's just a buzzword that courts have used to, as a highly arbitrary vibe check to determine whether too much power has been delegated to an executive agency. And the answer has pretty much been always no. The non-delegation doctrine needs to be brought back with force. I was saying basically, this feels like just a way to restate the non-delegation doctrine, but a little bit softer. And then the amazing Redditor Crenson had a much more thorough reply to my question. The short version is that when the Constitution clearly says that a certain thing is Congress's job, but Congress passes a law saying that they're delegating it to the executive branch instead, it's still constitutionally Congress's job. Congress can't just quit. At a bare minimum, when Congress delegates its own work to the executive branch instead, Congress must include some actual instructions saying how the executive is supposed to use that delegated authority in the name of Congress. And those instructions must be clear enough that other people, like the judicial branch, can actually have some hope of figuring out whether or not the executive actually is using Congress's powers in Congress's name to do what Congress told the executive branch to do. This also ties into an argument by Kavanaugh about basically saying, oh, well, why couldn't Congress just delegate everything away? And if they do delegate away something, then wouldn't you need a supermajority to declare to take it back, especially in an economic emergency? Because if a resolution passes to end the emergency, it can just get vetoed. I had thought that wasn't the case, but that concerns me now. So I really think the president's veto should have been just a suspensive veto that Congress could override by passing it again, which is already hard enough in the narrowly divided Congress that we have now. I also feel like Congress's authorization for the use of force that justified the war on terror has been stretched beyond its breaking point. But anyway, there was a lot of discussion that I don't think I have time to get much into, because it was very detailed between commenters in response to that person's reply and not me. But basically, one commenter said that nothing in the Constitution explicitly requires Congress to actually utilize its power, which is so ridiculous, or prohibits it from delegating powers to the other branches. In fact, one of Madison's original amendments to the Constitution, which I gotta look up now, would have put an explicit prohibition against that, and the necessary and proper clause, I think, gives a broad allowance for Congress to delegate its own powers to other branches as it sees fit. The other commenter was like, they did not include that on the list of things that Congress is allowed to do. It literally states herein granted when giving powers to Congress. It does not say whatever the hell Congress wants to do. Otherwise, Congress could just hand over literally all legislative power to the executive branch because it might be necessary and proper, from a political perspective, to enable the president to do things during an emergency. Personally, I don't think an enabling act would be constitutional. Frankly, your position would be one that Congress is allowed to make the president a king. Given the history of the founding of the country, that is flagrantly and patently absurd. So the other person replied, I would like to take the word of the person who was actually at the convention. And my response to that is, I personally do not put nearly as much stock in originalism as the first commenter seems to, as Hamilton did basically want an elected monarchy with the president only removable by voters and serving for good behavior. Just in multiple terms, like for life, as long as he got reelected. And the presidency was Or I think he wanted it just once for good behavior, and then for good behavior, because that makes more sense to me. But again, I'm kind of out of gas, and I just want to celebrate and relax in a little bit. Anyway, the presidency was designed very much like an elective monarchy, is my theory going into the America's Dangerous President Warship in December. That will be my last non-hot take analysis on contemporary politics for a while, as I try to somewhat ignore the news now that Trump is clearly losing his grip on power, and vent about specific abuses when they happen just off the cuff. This way I can work on my book proposal, run 2 other podcasts, write my novel, and research a massive essay about the role of the Byzantine Empire in shaping European and Middle Eastern history, particularly in the Levant, or Canaan, or Palestine, or Israel, or whatever you want to call it. As I feel that anybody who actually wants to talk about how to implement solutions in the Middle East with any seriousness needs to know about the Byzantine Empire, the Eastern Romans. Anyway, I'll therefore use the monthly format of History Flights for a few months to explain the major governments and histories inspired by the cultures that I've researched, ranging from Napoleonic France to the Empire of Mali to Eswatini in South Africa to Malaysia's rotating monarchy that forms the basis of the world of Taragia, the setting of the Wind Empress. The framers also did not foresee that black slaves would ever be treated as whole people rather than 3/5 of a person, which also increased the southern states' representation after Reconstruction in a way that northern states would have feared at the time. Hence why they agreed to it. Or that having the vice president would be the person who lost the election might be a bad idea, because they were naive and thought only George Washington types would be elected to the presidency. And speaking of presidential legacies, I'm going to quote myself from my last 5-hour stream on the invasion of D.C., Jimmy Kimmel's uncancellation, Charlie Kirk's fake martyrdom, and more. There is only one afterlife anyone can be assured of: historical reputation as constructed by future humans. Most people leave nothing behind after a few decades, let alone centuries. But world leaders live forever, for better or worse. That's why Lincoln stated, "We cannot escape the judgment of history," to Congress in 1862. History is the story of us, since the Sumerians made 600 characters on clay to describe items in storage, and the Chinese scratched on sacred turtle bones. And as such is insignificant geologically. But the thing about history is that it's always changing and always growing with us. Because it's the story we all tell. And history is like water. The more you punch it, the more it curls around you. That's what he doesn't get in his attempts to suppress news, Washington, D.C., and historical museums. Or his indifference to the economic crises that people are going through that are the reason that the Republicans have suffered so badly yesterday. We the people will always have the last laugh, and diversity exists, and diversity is why we will win. We will win. America is special precisely because it is not special. Therefore, it has no durable truth other than that which the people believe in and which will always endure. That the government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from this earth, or in America. And I will not let that happen, even if I am the last person who believes in what America can be while knowing all of what it has been. I have to think people constantly pissing on his grave, protesting his presidential library, and the ill-gotten Qatari jet, and making fun of him by calling fat, demented, idiotic, psychotic, a pedophile rapist, and the worst president in American history who got nothing of note done and almost ended the American experiment without him being able to respond, will be the kind of hell he has always truly feared, as he cares only for approval. And I will be his torturer from all my remaining days after I dance the day he dies, tearing off his legacy bit by bit with my voice as the wrath of history. And then I and others who lived through 15 years of his disasters will pass that on, and the wrath will flay his history open for all eternity. Allow me to expound on this theme and conclude by referring to President Trump's rue the day snark. No, President Pedophile! You will rue the day! You sent an angry mob to murder Congress and the Vice President! You will rule the day! You terrorize autistic and trans people like me with genocidal nonsense! You will rule the day! You invaded Washington, D.C., the city I've loved and lived in and near for 15 years, and kidnapped and brutalized people in it and other cities like it! You will rule the day! You tried to take actual history out of beloved Smithsonian museums like African American history and culture, Air and Space, and the National Zoo. You will rule the day you tried to terminate me and 1,000 other hardworking, conscientious public servants at Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and other agencies, who are the only ones who have actually upheld their oath to the Constitution. You fucking traitor! And most importantly, you will rule the day! You kept me from my fiancée in eswatini and our son! I am vengeance! Metaphorically. I am the wrath of history! I am D.C. Shepherd! If you run for a third term, then I'm ready for president too! Though again, I might run as a novelty in D.C. anyway. Or for governor of the state of Washington, D.C., to give people a voice on how they would like a state government to be run. And the end of your power will come sooner than you think. Once your lard bag of a body finally shuffles off mortality, history will pee on your grave. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta watch Survivor on a half-hour delay, so as to avoid commercials and then pass out. Hope you have a good